Welcome to SwineTime Podcast here at Pipestone. I'm your host, Dr. Spencer Wayne. I'm one of the staff vets here at Pipestone. I'm also one of the owners of the group, and I host this podcast. So I'm glad that you were able to listen today. Today at SwineTime, we have a special guest, Scott Webb. Scott Webb is CEO of Wholestone Farms. That is the producer-owned packing venture in Fremont, Nebraska. And Scott runs the show down there. Really happy to have Scott. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Spencer. I appreciate that.
All right. So you're here. We got you for a few minutes, and there's probably unending questions, but you can answer them better than anybody else associated with that project. So I'm glad you're here. I hope we can get all the points covered. Would you please just start out with your own background, your go back to your upbringing, even where you're from, what your interests were. I know you a little bit from speaking with you before, so I kind of know it, but whatever you think people might be interested out there that explains how you came from your origins to running this plant right now.
Okay, absolutely. So, born and raised in a small farming community in north central Kansas, and went to my undergraduate at Fort Hays State University, majoring in ag economics. Thought I wanted to be a banker. And in 1985, when I graduated, the pay wasn't very good in the banking industry, and I started seeking out other opportunities. Landed a job as a feed sales representative for Farmland Industries down in Oklahoma, and had the pleasure to work with farmers of all different types of livestock, dairy, cattle, beef cattle, pork, you name it, the whole gamut. Basically, working with them on formulating diets, putting together animal health programs, vaccine programs, etc. Later in my career, moved from the animal nutrition side over to the livestock side, and was actually the director of livestock production for Farmland's livestock system, which was a contract operation with sow farms and nurseries and finishing barns. And that was great experience. Then moved over to the food side, and basically in the mid to late 90s, and have been on that side of it ever since. First 15 years at Farmland. Farmland was a farmer-owned cooperative. And some of my greatest memories are working directly with the producers, being on the farm, talking about life, talking about how to get the best gains, the best nutritional programs, and it was just a wonderful time in my life. And then I moved over into the food side and got the opportunity to learn a lot about all the different product groups, how yields work, how interacting with customers and consumers, and so on and so forth. But I think the key there for me is, when I look back at my 36 years of doing this, my favorite memories were working directly with the producers. In 2016, I joined Seaboard Foods to head up their domestic sales and marketing and product R&D. I was there about 3 years when the phone call came about the opportunity for a CEO role at Wholestone. And I've told this story before, that I think I told the recruiter no 4 times, and they finally convinced me to at least go meet with the executive search committee, which was three of the board members. And we spent about 2.5 hours talking about the job and my background and all that good stuff. As I talked to the board members, it became very clear that their values and my values aligned extremely well. And at one point in the interview, one of them said, "Hey, there's something different about you. What is it?" And I said, "I don't want to offend anybody, but my faith in God and my family." And they all smiled, and I thought, okay, we got something here. So fast forward, second interview, I just fell in love with the opportunity to come back and work with, just salt of the earth, smart, entrepreneurial farmers that share my values.
Yeah. So in talking to you before, you're confirming it with me right now. 2 things about you that I'm kind of grabbing onto is, one, your values, and that fit really well with with the one person in that group that I know fairly well, and that's Luke. So I can imagine that he looked and said, yeah, I like this guy on how he conducts himself and views his walk through life. And then your passion for working with farmers. And so I know for me, that's why. I mean, I love animals, but I love farmers. So working with farmers counts for a lot. So those two things, big drivers. And you met with the guys. It obviously fell together well. And then boom, you're on board. Since you came on board, would have been early 19, I think, is when you came on. That's right after the purchase went through. Then the business, and I made a mistake earlier. I said you ran the plant. You're the plant manager. You're the business manager. So there's broader things than just running a plant, although that's part of it. What's the mission and the vision of Wholestone?
That's a good question. To give a little bit of background on that, if I can, when I early on, and I think it was like the second board meeting after I came on board, the board charged me with developing a mission and vision statement for the company as well as our core values. And rather than just create something from within Wholestone and the plant here, we worked with an outside third party marketing firm and did a cross-sectional interview of employees here at the plant, as well as a cross-section set of interviews with our owners out on the farms. And because we wanted wherever we landed with a mission and vision and core values, that it represented not just the plant and the employees, but the whole integrated Wholestone system. And so we did that, and we presented that to the board, and where we landed, and I feel really good about these, our mission is to provide customers with quality pork products they can trust and a culture that fosters innovation and opportunity. So that's our mission statement. So when I think about our mission, that's what we do every single day. And not just here at the plant, but across all 200 producer owners and the people that work at the plant. Our vision then, to me, represents what we strive to be. And I absolutely love our vision statement. And it's simply bringing the consumer closer to the farmer. And I think that says a lot about who we are and what we want to become. I think it will play extremely well with consumers, with customers, as we progress forward in selling Wholestone product around the world.
Thank you for sharing that. And especially when you say producer closer to the farmer, just the fact that this plant and this business is owned by farmers, it should be a much easier bridge to cross as far as achieving that vision of who you wanted to be. Scott, as we're talking, I'm thinking about kind of back to working with farmers, and it relates to the mission and the vision. It really hit me during COVID when all the plant problems were happening. Other plants had shut down, weren't running for extended periods. A few plants did not. Wholestone was one of those. It rarely slowed down a bit. I mean, whatever was going on down there, you kept the machine running, and pigs were able to be harvested like steadily. And and just stepping back to appreciate that, I remember within our group, Luke had shared quite a bit of, when he went down there and was interacting with the employees and feeling how the employees felt during all the stress of should I show up to work or not, or how we're going to cover the shifts, was that the employees saw their role in this whole thing and related to the farmers, and there was some next level set of commitment that would be shared. Like we have to show up. These farmers have to get their pigs harvested. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Maybe you want to comment on that, because I don't want that to get lost in this thing, that the culture of the plant was running that way already, that there was commitment to the job, that also there's commitment to the process of these hogs have to get harvested. And we have to show up for that rather than not showing up for work where you might have made that decision in another plant. Is that fair to say? How would you characterize that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Spencer. And let me shed a little light on that if I can. So first thing I want to say is when they purchased this plant, part of the purchase was the plant had 1,250 employees that remained here, transferring from Hormel employees to Wholestone. And within that group, the plant manager and the team that were here, there was a great culture already in place. And we were able to come in because of our farmer ownership because our farmers are all successful entrepreneurs, they expect and allow me to run this company the same way. Let's go out and get stuff done, celebrate our successes, fix our failures, and continue to be the best we can possibly be. And so we were able to take a great culture that we inherited and build on it. And as we started building out the leadership team, because we were transitioning, if you think about this, from a plant that laddered up to Hormel to a company that we were putting the pieces together in. And part of what we did is once a quarter, we call them quarterly meetings, or some people would call them town hall meetings, where we, over the course of about 7 meetings, starting at 6 in the morning and the last one's starting at 4 in the afternoon, where we have the chance to address every single employee across all 3 shifts of the company. We would meet with them once a quarter, and part of those meetings are updating all the employees on, the functionings of the plant and hitting our goals and all those KPI type metrics. But we also are constantly talking to them about our mission, our vision, our farmer ownership, that this plant and the success thereof is a big part of the livelihood of the future of our farmer owners. And so I think that was installed in everybody's mind and heart. And then the other thing that we did here that I think was a little bit unique was when COVID hit, or actually before it hit, when we started hearing rumblings of it occurring over the pond in China, we pulled the team together, started talking about it, started putting a plan in place. And then when it hit, we were able to react very quickly. And one of the things that we did that I think was very unique to most other packers was the transparency that we initiated with our employees, first and foremost, with our local county health officials, with our governor, and with all other stakeholders in the community. We purchased an app right after COVID started called Regroup that allows us to type a message and hit send, and when it sends out, it sends a voicemail to your phone, a text to your phone, and an email to your phone. And it's translatable into 3 different languages: Burmese, Spanish, and English. We would send out a regroup message twice a day, every single day, letting our employees know how many people were out, how many people were quarantined, what we were doing about it. We did a survey of our workforce and found out that 80% of them didn't even have a thermometer in the home. So we ordered 2,000 thermometers, and we put care packages together that included face masks, disinfectant, thermometers, and soap that we sent home. We did that on 2 or 3 occasions. We had daily phone calls with county health, weekly phone calls with the governor, and I think the honest and transparent communication that we had with our employees gained their trust that we care about you. We went through the plant and we put plexiglass everywhere to try to separate. We got masks as quickly as we can get them. We had to ship masks in from China. But I think the combination of getting on top of it, being transparent and honest with our employees, and having a culture that is united as one integrated system. It's not just the plant, it's the plant and the 200 farmers, allowed us to not only not close the doors, but during the peak of COVID, April, May, June, we actually ran at 108% of capacity.
Scott, how many employees do you have there?
1,200.
1,200 employees. Yeah, it's hard to get your head wrapped around that, just having to communicate amongst all the employees like that and have it be a fluid process where people are informed. So great. But this leads me to the next question I got for you then is single shift plant currently, 1,200 employees. What's next for the Fremont operation there? And if you would, after you covered anything you want to cover on that, we're all aware that there was some activity by Sioux Falls. And so what's next for that? But if you want to camp out on that and just kind of let us know what's going on operationally in the next year and the next couple of years whatever you're comfortable talking about, we're eager to hear.
When we acquired this plant, part of the deal was we had a 3-year contract with Hormel whereby all the product was sold back to Hormel, and so we were basically a co-packer with a meat supply agreement for Hormel on everything we did. But as part of the agreement was that over time Hormel would pull their what they would call further processing operations out of the plant. And as they did that, we would go in and update the plant to be a state-of-the-art processor of fresh, high-quality fresh pork. We completely renovated the offices, added on to the office, put in a new cafeteria so that our plant was up to speed with the more modern plants, and our employees have a good place to come eat with lots of daylight and sunshine, to eat their lunches and dinners. Renovated all the locker rooms, so all of our locker rooms now look like a locker room you would see if you walked into a modern middle school or high school. We updated our MedCore. We added a new lab so that we can do all of our testing here on site for things like ractopamine, meat quality, pathogen testing. Then part of the purchase and the plans of this company to second shift this plant, we were required by the city to add a wastewater treatment facility. That opened up this past April and is up and running. So now the projects we're in play on right now are a new trim blend room, which just started up last week. We're putting in a snap chill system, which is a 3-phase process that cools the carcass down faster before it goes into the calibration bay. That will become operational in mid-December of this year. And then we have 2 major projects left after that will start here this fall. One is a new rendering plant. This was an old plant that was acquired here. So the rendering, like most old plants, was in the basement of the facility. We're going to build a new facility on the east side of the plant, outside of the plant, and for a couple of reasons. One, it'll give us the ability to get a lot better yield on the choice white grease and meat and bone meal, things like that. But also getting it out of the plant reduces a potential fire hazard because that stuff's you're dealing with lots of heat and steam. It also will pretty well eliminate odor that comes from the rendering process, not only here in the plant, but in the surrounding area of the community. The last big project after that is a linear cut floor, where the pork will come out of the coolers to a main break running north to south and be a straight line down to packaging. That will position this plant to be world-class in both meat quality, shelf life, efficiency, and position us to sell chilled pork around the world. And that is all scheduled to be done by July of 2023. And then that fall of 23, we would begin the process of adding a couple more EQ bays and begin the process of ramping up a second shift. It will take approximately 15 months to ramp that second shift up. So by the end of 2024, we would be fully second shifted. That's the goal. Processing roughly 22,000 head a day here in Fremont.
Yeah, that's to me the most amazing thing, or the thing that's hardest to get my head wrapped around is, if you're looking at live production, you can build a sow unit and a year later you're making pigs, where it was just a green field before, and you can build a finishing barn in a few months and put pigs in there, and immediately in the course of raising pigs, just months after you started the concept of the plant. Now, this plant down there, everybody's kind of interested in this, the last thing you hit on, which is when's the second shift go on? And I remember thinking like, you just hire some new people, right? Which isn't an easy thing, but no, you described a ton of internal capital improvements or process improvements that are taking years to do. And then when you finally get to the fall of 24, not even the fall of next year, that's when you'll start to, I'm sorry, no, it was the fall of 23, second shift starts, but it's a 15-month ramp up. So you'll be into literally beginning of 25 before this thing is fully second shift operation going steady. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Yeah. We'll ramp it up in phases, and you got to bring people on board, get them trained, start up a little bit, and then just every 4 weeks you start ramping it up. And could happen faster than that, but conservatively, we're projecting 15 months from start to fully ramped up.
Yeah. So it was late in 24. It'll be into 26. Sorry, I misspoke.
25.
No, 25. 25. You're right. I misspoke.
Yeah. Yep. So, and the other thing too that, to your point on the sow farms, and obviously this has been exacerbated here recently with all the supply chain disruptions, but a lot of the equipment that goes in these rendering facilities and these cut floors, come from other countries, and they're custom made to fit your need. And so they're made overseas and then they're shipped over here. So the lead time before COVID and supply chain disruptions were 50 to 70 weeks. Now the lead times are 80 to 90 weeks. So that's the amount of advanced planning that has to go into all these, and this is a massive project. This cut floor is, 125,000 square foot facility add-on to the plant, and it's a big deal and takes lots and lots of planning.
All right. What about Sioux Falls? That everybody's very curious about that, and really all that's for sure is that there's some land bought. Is that correct, or what's?
Well, yeah, that's correct. We announced in June of this year that our board had voted, and we were going to we owned the rights to 170 acres of land there in Sioux Falls. The board voted, and in June we announced our intent to go forward with the purchase of that land to build a greenfield 6 million head a year pork processing plant on that site. And so that announcement was made in June. At the end of September, we made we closed on the purchase of the land. Now the question is, okay, what's going on now? So right now we're going through the process of a couple of things. One, myself and Dr. Minion has been very involved in this as well, going up and meeting with civic and community leaders in the city and the state to garner support, which so far the support has been very positive in that regard. Secondly, we've engaged with a third party to begin the process of the permitting, and that will take probably about a year to get all the paperwork and everything lined out for our both local and state permitting for air and water and all the different things that we got to get permits on. Early next year, early 2022, we will begin the process of working with our design and construction engineering firm to start the actual design of the facility, and then once that's complete, then we, the plant itself, the wastewater treatment facility, all that, then formalize all the permits and get those all approved. Our intent, our goal is to begin construction of the facility, moving dirt probably sometime in the spring of 2023. So all that said, if we hit those timelines, it's about a 2.5 year build. So if we start, let's just say for easy math, we start in the spring, say April of 23. So you're April 24, 25. You're probably starting to plan up the first shift in 2026, spring of 2026. That's a rough estimate as we stand today with everything that has to take place.
Yeah.
Get all the permits, 2.5 year build out, ramp up the first shift, and then we would probably run one shift for a while to get everything running smoothly, and then begin the process of eventually ramping up a second shift.
Okay, that's way more detail and specifications you just laid out there than I thought were even in place. So I thought it was all going to be just intentionally left vague, but you got some real plans there. So, all right, moving ahead. In 26, you'll have 6 million pigs essentially capacity. And just the year before, you would have added a couple million with the second shift down in Fremont, correct?
Yeah, with the second shift here in Fremont, we'll be right at 6 million, and then when you add a first shift up there in Sioux Falls, gets you another 3 million, so that you're right at 9 million.
Yeah.
And then when you're fully second shifted, you'd be at 12 million. And our producer group, our current producer owner group, collectively raise about 12 million pigs a year.
You say current producer group, the current owners in Wholestone with stuff they've committed currently to Wholestone, but then they have other pigs that go elsewhere currently, but that totals up to 12 million.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know how much detail you'd be ready to talk about, but it sounds like there's some plans in place to go forward with that. All right. Shifting gears a little bit. You're buying this, I call it commodity pork right now, but the farmers are feeling pressure for more information or changes in what they're doing. And that includes, having sows gestating in pens, our use of antibiotics, focus on sustainability, the boar line that's used shifting more and more towards Duroc, Prop 12. There's all these things that end up being, I don't know if they used to be differentiators, but now maybe that's becoming more the expectation. But I don't know can you comment at all on how Wholestone is viewing these attributes that are currently kind of laid out there that people are pursuing or not, and how you're angling to get in front of that, as well as what's next for those type of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously when we look at everything we look at, we try to look at it holistically across what we refer to as the Wholestone Farms integrated system. So from the sow farms of the producer owners all the way through the plant, first and foremost, we want to make sure that anything we do is beneficial to that integrated system and adds value in some way. And there's lots of things going on. There's lots of buzz about open pen. Prop 12 is a hot topic right now in California. Antibiotic-free pork is still somewhat of a niche type item when you look domestically, but when you look globally, globally, at least right now, it's more about traceability, quality, consistency, those types of things. When you're selling chilled pork to Japan or South Korea or other key export markets, they're more concerned about the traceability. How was the pig raised? What was the diet of the animal? What are the genetics? What's the meat quality? What's the cold chain look like? And is the product consistent every time that I get a container in Japan or Korea, wherever it might be going? So whereas here in the U.S., there's lots of different moving parts on niche type items, largely centered around animal welfare. And we believe that our farmers, many of them already have open pen gestation. We're doing that today. But right now, there's a lot of wait and see on the whole Prop 12 as to, is it really going to happen in January? All indications are it is. And then will it grow from there? And that's still yet to be determined. As we look forward to 2022, our contract with Hormel ends at the end of 21. Starting January 1 of 2022, we're selling pork as Wholestone. Now, Hormel will be a significant customer of ours in 22 and beyond, but we'll have many other customers as well, which will be different for us. And as we look at 22 and the customers we've been working with to lock in sales for next year, we're not getting a lot of requests at this point based on our targets for any specific attributes like pens or Prop 12. But as we look forward into 23 and beyond, we're listening to our customers, we're listening to the consumers, and we will adapt accordingly. But one thing that we are doing system-wide across all 200 producer owners, and the plant here is launching this sustainability initiative. And we have a goal here at Wholestone to be the most sustainable, the most transparent, and the most traceable pork supply out there for the long term. And we think because of our farmer ownership and having control from the crops all the way through the product in the box, that we're better positioned to do that than anybody else in the marketplace.
If you're talking about the sustainability and then these intangible or tangible things that are out there to be marketed, and you said we're not selling pigs under generically as Hormel's meat now, providing it to them, we'll be selling it as Wholestone meat. Can you capture value on any of the things yet as the meat, or is this all yet to come where you say, hey, I got this meat? Maybe something like pen gestation or Prop 12, sustainability thing, you kind of got me curious. Is there any marketing that pulls that in that says, hey, this is more valuable pork because we're doing these things already, or is that set in the future quite a ways?
I think, let me answer that a couple of ways, Spencer. One, all of our competitors have sustainability platforms and generate an annual report or every other year report on what they're doing with their corporate social responsibility and sustainability initiatives. So part of it is just getting us on the playing field, on an equal playing field with competition that we'll be going up against to sell pork. But secondarily, we believe over time, is that 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, we don't know as we sit here today, but over time, we believe that through our farmer ownership and our structure, that our ability to trace and be transparent and sustainable is going to be better than most other people out there, because we are very unique from the standpoint that we're the only, that I'm aware of, farmer-owned, fully farmer-owned pork processing company of any scale in the United States. And how we leverage and package that, we think over time will generate value. Here's an example. Yes, we have competition with other pork processors. We have competitions with other animal proteins. But if you look at it from a consumer perspective, the real competition is probably the plant-based people. And what's the story they're telling in the marketplace and convincing the consumers of is that they're better for you health, and they're better for you environment. And through our sustainability practices and tracking, our goal is to change that dialogue over time to say, hold on a minute. We think maybe with our farming practices, our manure management practices, et cetera, that we may be putting more back. When you take what we take out and what we put back, that we want to be carbon neutral or better, and begin to change that dialogue. And I think if we can begin to change that dialogue, it's going to help us with profitable market share. When that happens and how much value that creates, I'm not sure at this point in time. But on the flip side, there's not a lot of cost that goes into, our farmers are great environmental stewards and are sustainable people. They have to be to survive. And so, but let's capture it. Let's capture it from the beginning all the way through the product in the box and see where we end up. And I think where we end up is going to be a pretty amazing story. I just don't have it yet because we're just starting to capture the data. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, totally does. I can track right along with where you're going and where you want to go with this. The other thing I had for hopefully brief comment / question is, you said a couple of things. One is the American or the domestic market is really appreciating these niche type attributes, like, I want Prop 12, or I want antibiotic free, or I want this other program or some welfare program or genetics, and which is you're meeting individual needs. Kind of, I have several different production streams, maybe going out to satisfy that. Then the export market, which is predominantly Asian, or just say export market in general, is just saying, I want consistent quality. Do those counter each other? Those are opposites almost. Like, I just want the same thing done right, exactly the same way every day, so it's consistent, versus I want this little program for this guy and this program for this outlet. Is that true, or is it now they actually fit right together?
I mean, they can go together. I'll just take domestic retailers. I won't name a retailer, but domestic retailers, they're more price sensitive than, say, the Asian market, for example. So they're not as picky about quality, but they expect good quality and consistency of supply. That's very important to them as well. And when you look at some of the more niche stuff like the antibiotic free, some of those types of things, those are very, very small portions of the marketplace. And when I look at data on what's going on in the marketplace and where's the growth coming, the growth isn't coming necessarily from the vegetarian side or the plant-based side. It's more what they call the flexitarian, which is the people that are eating less meat and more, they're balancing, they still want their meat, but they're going to eat less of it and then substitute that with either fish or plant-based product. And they're doing that for perceived health benefits and or perceived it's better for the environment perspective. And I think we have an opportunity to target in on that segment, because that segment's moving the needle down on animal protein and up on other plant-based or fish. And they're doing it because they perceive it to be healthier, better for them, and better for the environment. So if we can over time change that dialogue to say, no, this is actually, this pork, the way we produce it and trace it and provide transparency to you, the consumer, is actually better for you health-wise and is equal to or better than the alternative environmentally wise. And I think that's where we got to, our industry as a whole has done a very poor job of telling our farmer story. And I think that's a real opportunity for us at Wholestone, is to tell that story as a farmer-owned company, because we can tell it and have the facts to back it up over time. Whereas a lot of other companies are fragmented on where they get their animals, and so they don't have that transparency and that traceability that we will have once we get everything put in place.
Right. Hey, kind of on the angle of the farmers that are out there, there's the farmers that we're already engaged with at Wholestone that are part of this process, and would, I think, fair to say they're looking forward to the growth in being part of that process as well. And they're kind of already tuned in, but there's a whole large population of people that were aware of it that decided not to get in, or maybe they got news of it too late, or wasn't an option for them at the time, or they weren't part of a core group that was being communicated to. That population is still out there, so they may be listening right now. Do you have any advice for the farmer out there, the family farmer? Maybe he makes his own feed, he's got his own land, he's raising his own pigs, he's maybe one of our Sow Unit shareholders, maybe not. But somebody out there thinking about how he's going to survive and his family's business is going to survive to the next generation. Plant, in my mind, has got to be part of it, but what thoughts do you have to share with that person out there that's not part of Wholestone now, that's listening to this?
Yeah, good question, Spencer. And I would say that we believe at Wholestone that the model that's been put together with Wholestone is a great model to create both extrinsic value for the farmer owner as well as intrinsic value for the farmer owner, and position them to be financially viable for the long term, because they're participating through the entire food chain. And as we grow, and right now we are in growth mode, there's no question about it. We're planning to double shift this plant. We're planning to add the plant in Sioux Falls, and I can share with you that between myself and other people here at Wholestone, as well as I know Dr. Minion and has received numerous phone calls, as Wholestone enters its, it gets ready to wrap up our third year of being in business, and then made the announcement on the additional plant in Sioux Falls. I don't know the number, Spencer, but I know it's well north of 150 farmers have approached either Dr. Minion or myself or other people here at Wholestone on how do I participate in this. And what I can tell you is we are in growth mode. We're keeping a list of producers as they call and ask, and we're willing to sit down and talk to them, give them a plant tour, and then ultimately, when that time comes, when we're ready to start raising capital for the building of the Sioux Falls plant, as one example, then that will be a board decision on how we go about bringing in new members. But I believe that over time, there will be an opportunity as we grow for other farmers to become part of Wholestone. And it makes a lot more sense for all of us farmers in Wholestone to work together as one versus having 5 or 6 different Wholestone type companies start popping up around the country. We're stronger together than we will be separately. And that's kind of the message that when I talk to people about it, and I know when Dr. Minion talks to people about it, but there is a tremendous amount of interest, and we're keeping track of that. And then when that time comes, our board will guide us on how that will happen as far as how we bring potential new farmer owners into the system to facilitate the growth.
Sure. One key thing I think you said buried in that was get on a list. Reach out, make sure somebody's got your name on a list that you're known. Reach out, and I'd say within our group, because we work with a lot of farmers that are system shareholders or clients, that reach out to your vet, reach out to the person within the Pipestone group, because we're connected with Wholestone.
Oh yeah, Pipestone's connected with so many producers across the entire country that and then as my contact information gets out, Ron Browning, who's our hog procurement manager, some of our salespeople, I mean, we're all getting phone calls, and we're just saying, okay, if you're interested, let us know, and we're compiling a list.
Yeah.
And when that time comes, I mean, how that happens and is facilitated will be driven by my board. But the bottom line is we plan to grow, and it doesn't mean that we have to stop with Fremont and Sioux Falls. We could go beyond that.
Okay, so make your presence known, and ultimately end up probably talking to you, Luke, or somebody involved directly with the business there. But somebody within our group can connect the farmers to those folks. What do you got for final thoughts?
Well, I would just say this, that more than ever, today's consumers want to know where their food comes from, and is it nutritious and wholesome for my family? How was the animal treated? How were the employees treated that processed the animal? And a farmer-owned system, when I step back again and look at farmers, farmers do the greatest job of environmental sustainability of anybody in the world, but we've done a terrible job in telling the consumer about it. And I think as we evolve and start capturing this information, start sharing it with consumers, and tie back to our vision of bringing the consumer closer to the farmer, it's going to be extremely powerful. And we're the only company out there that can really do that today. And frankly, that excites the heck out of me and everybody else that works at this company.
All right. Amen to that. To our listeners, thanks for joining us today. There will be another topic coming your way soon. So thank you for listening today to the SwineTime Podcast. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks.
SwineTime Podcast was created for the pork industry and individual pork producers around the country. Hosted by Dr. Spencer Wayne with the Pipestone Veterinary Services, the podcast contains pork industry news, advancements in animal care, and how to enhance your productivity. Monthly podcasts are available on Spotify, Google Music, iTunes, Anchor, and on www.pipestone.com.